Welcome, everyone, to the future of space. I'm Daniel Fox. Today, with us, we have retired astronaut Nicole Stott. She's the founder of Space for Art Foundation, an ambassador for the watches Omega, and the author of Back to Earth. Nicole, welcome to the future space.
Thank you, Daniel. Happy to be here.
So glad to have you. You just came back from London. You've been busy reading your book to the young and the middle and the older people, and everybody seems to be thrilled. So, congratulations.
Thank you. I like it when people respond with their own kind of take from it, their own personal call to action, if you will. Really makes me happy.
You've been to space, obviously, and I start this podcast with always the same two questions. And for this one in particular, your answers will be quite accurate because you've been there. Can you describe with us three words to describe space?
Mm. Technically, this is four, but I would say we're in it.
It's true.
But which is true. It's
Yes.
totally technically true. I'd say seriously though, though most of us forget that, right? That we're in it. But I think the three words I would use are humbling and awesome and mysterious would be the three. Yeah.
By the way, who took the
You know,
who took the picture of you on the? Is that you?
that's me. And
It's
yes, my crewmate Danny Olivas, who was out
Daniel
on that
Leaves.
spacewalk with me. Yeah.
It's a big shout for that.
Yeah.
So mysterious, humbling,
And awesome.
and
And I
awesome.
think, they all make sense, don't they? Humbling, that perspective, the who and where we all are together in space. Awesome in all the ways I think you can imagine
Yeah.
that word is so totally appropriate. And mysterious, I think, there's a lot more. So I think you don't have to leave the planet to know any of these three things, right? To feel this about space. And um, I don't know. I think we get the sense when we consider space that we realize there's a lot more that we don't know
Yeah.
than what we think or that we do know. So yeah, I think that's kind of the mystery to it.
All those words could be applied to nature, and space is nature because the
Hmm.
universe is nature. And so now there's a lot of discussions about going to space, what it's going to do to to our kind. Is it necessary? Frank Wright, and you wrote you quote in his book, The Overview Effect. Many people are saying that actually going to space will be one of the best things for Earth and for ourselves because the experience and the awareness that we will have will just be so incredible. What is the the biggest benefit of us going to space and seeing the Earth and the universe?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think we could talk about this all day for all of the different reasons that I think you and I believe this is an important thing. Certainly, what you just mentioned about our friend Frank and his philosophy that has allowed us all, I think, to think about this in a much more meaningful way, right? I don't think any astronaut went to space with those two words, overview
Yeah.
effect, in mind. At least, now I think it's so thankfully out there as a conversation that people are considering it before they go, which is such a great like human thing to be considering. But that perspective for sure, right? Opening our hearts and our minds to the reality of who and where we all are and the preciousness of
Yeah.
all of that. And on top of that, aside from just like this vision of Earth, of our home from space and the reality of it, I mean, everything we're doing now, have done, and are planning to do in space in one way or another is for the benefit of life on Earth.
Yeah.
And the best way, it's like the best way for us to be measuring, and we are the vital signs, right, of our planet is from these space-based platforms that we have.
Yeah.
The International Space Station program, and not just the science that's coming from it, but the beautiful living and working example, I
Yeah.
think, of peaceful and successful international cooperation. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, all of that.
Absolutely. All of it. bullet points that
Oh,
you
I mean,
keep
in
going
each one
down.
of those little things we could be talking about, we could be talking about some specific area of science or this perspective or the fact that we can build this mechanical life support system in space that mimics what Earth does for us naturally, and then go there
Yeah,
with our partners from around the world and do really meaningful, important things together. Yeah.
absolutely. We're talking to Jane from Space Perspective the other day, and like, who should they at least reserve some seat to bring up? And we're talking about obviously war leaders, so that they can experience and come back down. I mean, the TED conference did something similar when they
Hmm.
brought a bunch of leaders on a boat so that they could experience the ocean. And obviously,
Yeah.
once you experience physically something, that's something you can connect to. Now, Nicole, I read the book from the
Thank
beginning
you.
until the end. I was making notes. I was making these little
Yeah.
my little
Little
corners
tab marks.
on the page. There are there are definitely a couple of items that for me summarize the essence beyond the we have to protect the earth, but the human story in it. And I want to start by on page 6 about your
Oh,
experience
maybe I'll open.
about your experience in NASA, and you talked that your most important lesson at NASA was not about science; it was about the people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what, and maybe I could include in that the life, all of the life around us, right? On a space station, there's not, a whole lot other life except for maybe some experimental stuff going on with plants and things. But, just every experience we have, I think, in one way or another boils down to who we've shared it with.
Yeah,
I know you go out a lot by yourself, but I imagine that in all of that, there's this consideration of the life that's around you and how you're impacting it, how it's impacting you, maybe just, the benefit of being there together in that place and the appreciation of it. I think the same is true in what we're doing with our partnerships in space, whether that's the 6 or 7 people on board the spacecraft or the tens of thousands down here on Earth that are supporting and helping make that happen. Um, that really, I think, in the end, is the most meaningful to me. And then the work that we're doing together is the result of those relationships, right? The way that we can make that peaceful and
yeah,
successful and know that we're all working for this, what we know to be a greater good kind of mission going on, and as one crew. And I think that's so, crew is all about the people
yeah. It is.
and the ones that are working together to make it happen. So yeah, I think that in any of this, the science, all of it, it comes down to how we're developing and growing and building on those very positive relationships for the benefit of all of us, and not just
Yeah,
us as the human earthlings, but for all life on Earth.
absolutely. I was in Alaska and I was at the radio giving an interview, and then they asked me, the usual, what's your favorite place,
Yeah,
favorite nature encounter? And I found
yeah.
myself answering that it was not mountains are mountains, animals are animals. And the end, it's beautiful. But what I come back with are all these humans that I've connected to along the way. These people who have opened their houses, welcomed me
Mm-hmm.
into their place, and share their stories. And those are my most precious possessions. Is I have all these little hosting families scattered around the world, and because I'm human, and ultimately well, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this is where we bond on a deeper level. Then yes, nature gives us these amazing experiences, but at the end, it's a human story. I'm always so fascinated when I see accomplishments like Perseverance or any satellites. I mean, recently the James Webb,
Yeah,
the complicated engineering of the
yeah,
teams and just the I mean, even just Elon's, rocket landing upright, the capacity that we have to achieve the impossible over these longer period of times just absolutely blows my mind away every time.
yeah. I love that, and I mean, for me, and I know I brought it up in the book along the way, maybe even more than once, but this, I mean, I think when you go out into the wilderness, right, you go out there with the idea that you're going to come back, you know, you're going to have this experience. It's going to be impactful on your life and hopefully on the lives around you, you know, when you come back and share it. And, but you go into it with the belief that you can do it, you know. And I mean, that was one of the earliest lessons I learned as a NASA engineer. And I keep it with me on my desk ever since then, is this whole idea of here's how we can, not why we can't, with the little astronaut guy,
Yes.
right? And and my dear friend, mentor Jay Honeycutt is the one who shared that with this whole group of young engineers coming in to start, you know, their careers working on the space shuttle program at Kennedy Space Center. And it was with, I mean, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like, man, we go into these things, we have to have the belief that there's a solution to
Yeah.
every complex problem. I mean, think about the, you know, this pathway to getting Webb to space, and then all of those things worked to deploy that
Incredible.
machine in space, right? You know, the same with the space station and all these things. You know, these 50th anniversaries we're having of landing on the moon. Holy moly! And you know, here's how we can, not why we can't, is the way that happens
Yeah.
by believing there's a solution to every complex problem. And that's, you know, that's where the human thing so much comes into play, of tapping into that resource that we have as
Yeah.
humans to engage with each other and decide,
Yeah.
you know, that we're going to solve the problems. And you mentioned, you know, Jane and then the Ted and getting leaders out on a boat. Man, you know, talk about where should we get them?
I know.
Let's get them into space together with their little heads floating around, bouncing off each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to COP26 this past year,
Yeah.
and all I could think is, why are these people holed up in a conference room anywhere? You know, they need to be out either in the middle of the rainforest that's been torn down, or out in the Pacific Gyre with
Yeah.
the plastic swirling around them, or in the forest, or on the boat, like you said, or, you know, ultimately let's pull it back and get them looking at the whole planet and this reality of who and where we all are together.
We're a physical species. We need to experience things. We need to feel things. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about the human species, we don't do well on concepts, and it's understandable because change in nature is an effort. By default, life doesn't want to change. It wants to. It changes by force, but it always tries to take the path of least resistance. But the power of the human story is that every time that we've hit a wall, we've been able to figure a way forward. It's a messy, complicated process. Learning and
Yes.
growth and transformation is always messy. But the fact that we are where we are today, yes, we have our challenges and our issues, but that we're coming together in often in the worst of times, and I think that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
purpose of those times is to remind us of our capacity to come together.
Yeah.
But we come on, we've put something on the top of a rocket, sent into like across the solar system onto a planet that we've never been before, into an atmosphere that we just know the information, and now we have a helicopter that is flying longer than the expected survival time into like an air that it's so that if we can do that, and just the, the necessity of those achievement to remind us of what we can do is necessary for everybody else back on earth.
And I love all of those, as humans, what we've gone as far as, you know, a 250,000 miles to the moon, and, you know, we're looking to go back, and I'm like, thumbs up for that, right? And establish that permanent presence there to settle and do all the good things again that are about bringing that back to Earth and figuring out how to explore further. But you know, you think about where we haven't gone as humans, but like you just said, you know, Mars and that little helicopter flying around there, and you know, I think about, you know, missions like Juno at Jupiter and Cassini at Saturn, all these, and we're learning all of these things about these places that really are mysterious to us in so many ways because they're so different than what Earth is to us, and yet we're compiling all that, and then what becomes the most important like picture or image that we remember from those missions? It's the one where we're in it, right? The little dot under Saturn's rings, or a sunset, the blue sunset on Mars with that dot of Earth there, where Earth doesn't look like Earth anymore, but we know that's us, and we're trying to, again, like humans, it's like we're trying to establish our relationship with each other again, and
Absolutely.
know where we are in that picture, and that's where the significance I think comes, and where all we learn about the rings and the moons and all of that becomes important because we can relate to it.
Absolutely. Now, another aspect in your book, it is on page 107, and thank you for sharing the intimate and personal moment. But you lost your dad at a younger age, and instead of becoming an event that would have been taking you away from pursuing your dream, because it was a pilot and you wanted to
Mm-hmm.
pilot, and so there were many reasons for you to take this and just say no, this is, it actually, you turned this into a powerful motivator, and your mom didn't stop you. Your mom actually
Mm.
encouraged you to, and you write about how now being a mom, how nerve-wracking it would have been, or it
Yeah.
was for your mom, but despite all that, it became a source of strength and a power on where you build moving forward. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think, and people sometimes are baffled by how could this be? How could this be? Something that inspired, a love of flying. And I think the word love is what is it's all about. It's like I witnessed, from as young as I can remember, my dad loving flying. I mean, absolutely, it was in him. And my mom, supportive of that every step of the way, to the point of where, as kids, we were at the airport together with my mom and my dad, hanging out there while he's working on his airplanes, flying airplanes, and introducing us to that as well. And I mean, sometimes I don't think we choose what we latch on to, right? It's just like part of who we are. And that to me was like, man. And at the time as a kid, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. This is fun. Why wouldn't anybody want to know about airplanes and be out at an airport and, flying in airplanes and things like that? And it just really, I think, had already gotten kind of solidly into me, as a passion, as a love myself. And even beyond wanting to fly in airplanes, it was like wanting to know how they fly. And I think that came from being immersed in these groups of people at the airport that loved flying and wanted to share everything about flying, with whoever they were talking to. And so when my dad did pass away in an airplane crash, a small one, kind of the typical
Yeah.
thing you would think of, and man, I'll tell you, it was devastating to us
Yeah.
for sure. But it was had gotten in me enough that I think part of that wanting to know how things fly is like I wanted to know, okay, so what happened? I'm thinking, accident investigation kind of thing. Okay, so what happened to this airplane? And all kinds of thoughts, of course, going through my mind at the time. But it was already solidly in me. It wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't coming out. I am so thankful for my mom not discouraging, that path for me. Being aware and deliberate, I'm sure, in her thoughts about it, but supportive every step of the way. And I'll tell you, when it gets to the point where your daughter is strapping into
A
a
rocket.
rocket ship, um, you have support when
Yeah.
when those people are willing to stand and watch you do that. So, um, very, very thankful for all that, and it opened up a world for me that I don't think I would have discovered otherwise.
Do you think that's one of the areas in our culture right now that we need to correct this? We have to let our children kind of push the boundaries a little bit, and as scary as it is, they need to find themselves in and that, it's both a relationship. The parent, I think, have to accept that, then the kids have to explore that. And I feel that in your culture right now, we've pull back a little bit too much. And you're a parent, and your
Yeah.
son is younger. So how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I remember where we were living when our son was little. We were on this cul-de-sac, and it was like, okay, don't leave the cul-de-sac kind of thing. And I think about when I was his age, I'm like, man, we were roaming the
I
neighborhood,
know. Yeah.
and our parents were yelling at us, at dinner time to come, out of the hole we dug in the empty lot across the street, and so things have changed a little bit, and I know there's positive and negative drivers to why those changes have happened, but yeah, I think there's something different to guardianship versus protection, like
Yeah.
overly protective. And I think we absolutely have to be the guardians of our children, and that's everything to being aware and involved in the environment around them, and those kinds of things. But yeah, I think ultimately we have to let them
Yeah.
figure out what they love. And I think about, like, with my parents, I'm so thankful that they shared what they love with me and my sisters. Every single one of us had a different path from those experiences, right?
Yeah.
All three of us aren't excited about flying, but we all, through what they shared with us and what they very obviously loved, we discovered what we did and didn't like about those things, and found the stuff that we really wanted to pursue. And I hope that my husband and I are doing that
No,
for our son, and
I'm sure
leaving
you and
leaving
Chris are
those
doing it.
opportunities open for him. Yeah, I hope so. There are times where you just want to put the arms around it and, oh, no, 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 but yeah.
I think the best you can do with children is give them the tools and the values to create that foundation that can be
Yeah.
applied to anything as they move forward. Because, as
Yeah.
you were saying earlier, what we were doing, I mean, we're out
Yeah.
climbing up trees, trying to figure out how to come down from the trees. Climbing up was never the issue. It's coming down. We're just like, oh
Right,
my
right.
God.
There's the quick way
I know.
that some of us did take, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, but I have to say though,
yeah,
what's something that just extends on what you were just talking about, like providing them, giving them, I don't know, sharing things with them. Like, understanding that even when they're little bitty, they get a lot more than what we sometimes give them credit for, right? And I think one of the greatest gifts that Chris and I have been able to do for Roman is, um, take him along with us on our travels too.
yeah,
Or, for me, while I was training, be able to get him out to the different training sessions where he's meeting the people and seeing the work that's getting done. And, but traveling to places where, we don't all live the same way, and things are different, and the nature around you is different. And discovering that that's okay, and the way that other people live is okay. And I think through those experiences we find the things that the most important things are the ones that we have in common, and can establish a relationship through, and then be excited by the differences that you see. And I'm thankful we've had the opportunity to do some of that with him.
where is he right now in his interest? And does he want to
Uh,
follow up in your shoes, or does he want to do
yeah,
something else?
no, I know for sure if you asked him, does he want to be an astronaut, he'd say no. That doesn't mean he doesn't want to go to space and
Yeah.
do the things there. He's in his second semester of university right now, figuring all of that out, and God bless him, because I remember those days. But he's just, I mean, he loves flying.
Yeah.
He's a naturally talented pilot, I think. He's a naturally talented scuba diver,
Nice.
and loves to boat and fish. And, I'm like, okay, I'm just waiting for that moment where he figures out the thing that pulls all of those, loves together somehow. And yeah, because very thankful for his, he's adventurous, and yeah,
Well,
loves to talk to people
I'm looking
sometime.
forward to be meeting him.
Yes. Send him off on a trip with you sometime. That would be good.
Well, listen.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit older now, and then I don't think my wife is like too happy whenever I go out by myself. I think my times are roughing it, or behind to a certain extent. I
Well,
figured
then you
out
need to have like a little slave kid with you. That's like we can send Roman with you.
I'll bring him along.
Yeah.
You have a, I think the, the most interesting chapter in your book is the one that is titled "After the Bugs." We're all bugs. I think I found that chapter to be really the human story, and there is so many little gems in there. Um, the illusion of obviously comparing us just to bugs, but also your fascination with bugs and what they are. But you tell about how NASA, there's always been, maybe not always been, but there is a culture understanding that diversity actually is a strength
Yeah.
in accomplishing the impossible. Um, can you talk a little bit about that culture and understanding of diversity?
Yeah, I think for me over the years of watching how just kind of the demographic around me has changed in general. I'm going to get asked the question all the time. You were the only woman on your crew. You were the only, that kind of thing. Which, from a positive standpoint, I think I only ever thought about that when somebody asked me about
Yeah,
it, right? Because I never felt like I was being put in this special little box that said, "Oh, Nicole's this. We've got this woman on the crew. We have to handle." I never felt like I was being treated differently, which I think is a good thing, right? And I was coming up at a time where while in school I was the only girl maybe in my classes, I saw professors around me that were women.
yeah,
There were women out at the airport flying airplanes. The other teachers I had growing up, strong women, my mom and sisters, kind of lifting me up along the way too, and seeing how just experientially and whatever flavor kind of human you are, we all bring
yeah,
we all bring our strengths to the table. And I think that's what's so cool. When I look at it like with NASA too, there's kind of the historical aspect of it,
yeah.
right? There was the days where really we look back 50 years ago to Apollo, right? And you look in mission control for the Apollo missions, there were no women in the front room, none, right? Poppy Northcutt was in the back room cranking away on, the math to get all
Yeah.
of this stuff done.
And they were all
And
smoking.
then yeah, there was the smoking thing going on too, right? But they had ties on, so it looked good,
Yeah,
right? And then, and then in Florida at the Launch Control Center, you had one woman in the control center, Joanne Morgan. Now, 52 years later, whatever, you look in those places, not only are they run by women,
yeah,
really incredible women running both of those operations, but you look across the consoles to all of the different people controlling whatever they're controlling for the missions in space, and it's just this mix of humanity.
yeah,
You're not finding yourself having to look, okay, where's Joanne or whatever, but it's just this colorful mix of humanity.
yeah,
And somehow, I don't know if it was deliberate, saying thou shalt hire this many of this kind of person, or what it was. I don't know what the secret sauce was to it, but somehow NASA, and I just use NASA as a single example, has progressed in a way that it's this blend of humanity, this diversity, bringing their strengths to these missions. And I wish I knew exactly what made that happen, right? Because it's such a great model for for so many other places that haven't discovered that quite yet. And then when we train to go to space,
yeah,
I mean, a lot of our training, actually, I would say all of it in one way or another, is how do you work as an effective team, and part of that success as a team is understanding the strengths and weaknesses of all your teammates, and for each teammate, like for me to accept that I have weaknesses. And my crewmate might be better at that thing than I am, and we need to leverage that, not just for each of us to be trying to do it all ourselves. Um, and that's a big deal. And then to me, that kind of expanded to this idea of, when you think about bugs, like there's so much going on below the surface of everything that it's a case of really and truly where size does not matter, right? It's like from the microscopic to the ginormous, there's significance in all of it. And that's why I love the gentleman that I interviewed in that chapter, David Lischwager, who I don't know if you've ever met David. He's
no,
Maybe in your world, I thought through the nature stuff, you guys might have come across each other. You should meet him. Incredible guy, and he has this. In everything he does, he's looking for this sense of mutual regard, right? Like me and you, we're on this, even on this video setup. There's kind of this need to figure out, how do I look in the camera to maintain like eye contact, to get a sense of what each of us is feeling and experiencing through this. And he looks at that in all of nature, in
Yeah.
the tiniest, and for it, in the tiniest creature, in a plant, and like, how can you establish mutual regard with something, which then makes you, you find yourself, whether you like it or not, with a connection to that other life, and wanting to know why it's significant and how we should protect that. It's pretty cool.
Science, I mean, there's obviously benefits of trying to identify the singularity of elements in around us. But in reality, nothing exists just by itself. Everything is
Right.
connected. There's a reciprocity that exists everywhere. And it's really hard for some of our brightest minds to understand that nothing can exist just by itself. Everything
Yeah.
has the context around. The data is one thing, but the data means nothing if it's not the context around. And for us, the humans, we're a product of our environment and all these little things around us. And ultimately, the motivation should be, if we're trashing the environment, at the end, we're trashing ourselves. Like
Yeah.
it should be about what we're doing to ourselves. The planet in some ways, will recuperate 10,000 years, 100,000 years. This is like a bleep on the scale,
Yep.
but it's for us. And the planet has had several of those, beginning and ending. um, and it's more about, okay, well, this one is on us, but we will be the ones kind of losing in the end. So trying to bring this story back to us, and not about a planet where people who are focused on trying to put food on the table and paying the
Yeah.
bills, and they go, I understand the planet, but I'm dealing with things that are a lot more
Yeah.
immediate. And like it doesn't take away the urgency, but I think it shifts the perspective and the narrative to make it more connecting rather than disconnecting. But
Yeah, I love it. That's, when I think about the bugs chapter too, and this like looking beneath the surface for things, you could think about it the same way. When we do lift ourselves off the planet, we're looking at it as a whole.
yeah,
There's no denying that interconnectivity that you're talking about. No, no denying it.
yeah,
And this sense of connection that you sometimes, are blinder to when you're right down in the middle of it. And so it's like in anything, when we have the chance to step back a little bit, we walk away, I think, with a little bit more in our heart that opens us up. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think about all of that in that kind of conversation of the planet.
yeah,
Like you said, the planet has survived worse than us, as this little
yeah,
blip on the timeline of Earth. And the sooner, I think, and I hope it comes through in the book, I really do try to emphasize it. And of course, using the space station as the example of this mechanical life support
yeah,
system, right? And the not new thought of Earth as our spaceship, and the parallels that we can look at there. It's like, man, if we do nothing else with our planet and considering of protecting it, then look around us and say, okay, these are the things about it that keep us alive.
yeah,
We have to maintain these things. Just like on our spaceship, in orbiting the Earth, we have to know how much CO2 is in our atmosphere. We have to know how much clean drinking water we have, integrity of our hull, and health and well-being of our crewmates. Those are they're like the baseline necessities to just surviving, not even to thriving, but to just surviving
yeah,
in that place. And the same is true here on Earth. And in the end, you're right. We if we're gone, the Earth will recover. It's done it before,
yeah.
and it may decide to recover in a different way than it did this time. So
You were on
We should
the
all at least share that guardianship responsibility.
you were on the on National Geographic's One Strange Rock, and in fact, after watching that, I reached out to you. We connected, and then we met at
Yep.
TED. And I remember you saying something to me because we were talking about evolution and how humans have come here, and you said evolution is a fortunate series of accidents. And I thought it was really it was kind of admitting that there's a lot of luck that we are where we are today, and because these accidents happened to create something, and then we turned it into also these advantages. But I always thought that it was a brilliant. Maybe you should trademark it. Maybe put a copyright. But I thought it was a brilliant statement.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. First of all, I think we have to accept that word evolution, right? In all things, in all things, and the way we choose to recover from from things that either are our own fault or that have been inflicted on us in some way, I think is what shows our strength and our power. Really, maybe our empathy, even as humans, is how we respond to those accidents, perhaps, um, and we can look around us now, and even the little things and the big thing, the planetary challenges that are happening, and consider that same thing. Okay, how are we going to choose to respond to this as individuals and as a planetary community?
Now we have a little bit of time. I want you to tell us about the Space for Art Foundation. Art is obviously a big thing for you, and it should be, and children also. And then you've combined those two. So, what is Space for Art Foundation?
Well, the Space for Art Foundation it's a small group of people that have brought together a large group of kids from around the world to, we like to say, we are uniting a planetary community of children through the awe and wonder of space exploration and the healing power of art. And this is something that, for me at least, started when I was still in space, and I didn't even realize it then, is that I had brought a small watercolor kit with me to the space station, had the opportunity to paint. I think it's one of the things now when I think about it, certainly one of the most special, like, personal memories for me of space flight. But I think it's just a great example of how we as humans are always going to bring ourselves with us, right? No matter where we go. It's kind of like the human in human space flight. And so when I retired from NASA and was really just, still trying to figure out how am I going to share this experience in a meaningful way, I kept coming back to art and knowing I was going to do that myself anyway. So why not use it as a way to communicate with people who might not even know there's a space station and the work that's being done up there as this international community every day to ultimately benefit life on Earth. And whether people like my art or not, is not the important thing I mean, I hope people like it, but I want to be able to make a connection that allows to share that backstory of what we're doing in space that's all about Earth. And that, like, long story short, evolved to me being introduced to a gentleman, an artist at one hospital in Houston, MD Anderson at their pediatric cancer center, Ian Sion, and he had always done these projects where with the kids he would do individual pieces of art with the kids and then create some large scale project out of it, and he always called them like community projects. And these are kids that are going through what you hope is the worst thing they ever have to deal with in their entire lives, right? And we would come in, we chose spacesuits as the art. This is an example back here of that's exploration right there. And each little individual piece of kids' art is then quilted together by the spacesuit company ILC Dover
Once it over.
into these beautiful art spacesuits. And we've got other projects that we do as well, but the suits seem to be kind of the focal point for the kids. And what started in that one hospital in Houston has now grown to the last suit that we did. We had artwork from at least one child in every country on the planet, and just incredible. And we collected all that through the COVID times, where not just kids in hospitals, but kids, in refugee center schools. And then we opened it up across the board because with this whole COVID thing going on,
Yeah.
I mean, every child in one way or another, regardless of where they were, is going through some form of isolation and different, way of having to live their lives with their families. And incredible how when you rally your friends, I'm sure you've seen this, again, the here's how we can approach to it. We will get art from North Korea, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And, and able to do that. And we now have a suit called Beyond that is created with over 800 pieces of artwork in this suit. ILC Dover, again, quilted it together.
Nice.
And we
Nice.
built the suit as the ambassador for Spaceship Earth. So the kids were already thinking about themselves as they were creating their art as crewmates here on Spaceship Earth. This connection between personal and planetary health, which is what you were just talking about. If our environment is CRAP, then what's going to happen to us?
Yeah.
Um, and it's gorgeous. And these kids through these projects, I mean, I have discovered my next mission, Daniel. There's no doubt in my mind that I went to space so I could be doing the work
Yeah.
with my friends at the Space for Art Foundation, and just watching in such a compelling way how these kids, through the inspiration of space and the creative outlet of art, and how that comes together with the other kids, how they really and truly like transcend the experience that they're having at that time and are thinking and speaking to their own future and what they see for themselves and their families. It's just, I mean, I get goosebumps every time I think about it. It's awesome.
Now, people can access the Space for Art Foundation website through your own website, and
Hmm.
then they can donate, and they can go and buy your book at Amazon or on your website.
Yeah,
What
it's anywhere you buy your books, you can
anywhere?
get that book.
What else they can? What else can they do if they want to follow and support Nicole Stott and Space for Art Foundation?
Well, please do. Please check out the Space for Art Foundation website, which is really simply just spaceforartfoundation.org. And we are on all of the social media platforms as well, either through mine at Astro underscore Nicole or Nicole Stott, and then Space for Art Foundation. And I really would encourage people to do that. I think, and I hope in reading the book, people do take away, find some little nugget for themselves, find a way to acknowledge the awe and wonder that's around you every day, to to read something that encourages you your own call to action in your own life and with the life around you. It's amazing what we all can do
It's
as
amazing.
crewmates,
It's
not
amazing.
passengers, right?
Everybody, go get the book Back to Earth. Reach out to Nicole. She's an amazing person. Nicole, you and I think we're due for like a drink soon. We'll meet up
Yes,
on the
beverage.
road. But until then, I wish you a wonderful day.
Thank you, Daniel, and I look forward to the future of space as well.
Thank you.